Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're going to dive headfirst into a truly startling, highly provocative thesis. We are going to walk through a completely logical, scientific deconstruction of the very concept of a deity.
Now, I know what you might be thinking. You hear a phrase like that, and your first instinct is probably to tense up, right? It's so easy to assume this is just another angry atheist piece designed to tear down religion. But if we can just put our initial reactions aside for a moment, what we're actually looking at is a rigorous, deeply fascinating philosophical courtroom argument. But here is the wild part, the paradox that makes this whole thing so incredibly compelling. Is the person actually making this bold claim? He is deeply spiritual himself. He is a man known as Osman, the blind Muslim yogi. Section 1. The blind Muslim yogi. Before we look at the evidence, we absolutely have to establish who our expert witness is.
Osman's resume is just staggering. He attained his first profound samadhi experience at just 19 years old. And for the next 50 years, he studied extensively across Far Eastern, Middle Eastern, and Western traditions. We're talking intensive, rigorous practice, sometimes up to 18 hours a day. Now, a really crucial detail to remember here. Osman actually only lost his eyesight recently, in May of 2023. So for his whole life before that, he experienced the world with normal vision, giving him a fully sighted perspective on everything he teaches. And even today, he's still putting in a minimum of 8 to 10 hours a day, just sharpening the sword of his abilities.
When we talk about profound spiritual states, we're talking about samadhi. If you've ever read classics like Paramahansa Yogananda's Autobiography of a Yogi, you know this isn't just feeling a little relaxed after a long day. It's total absorption. It's literally stepping into a higher, far more fundamental order of reality. What's really fascinating is how Osman vigorously pushes for a scientific approach over mysticism. Kind of like the neurobiology protocols you'd hear about from Professor Andrew Huberman, Osman wants the mechanism of action. He has spent his lifetime trying to simplify very complex, ancient protocols to get real, repeatable results. He treats bioenergy healing not as magic, but as a lost science focused on empirical data. Section 2. Establishing the ground rules. To really evaluate his claims fairly, Osman is asking us for a massive favor. We have to entirely leave our emotional baggage and cultural conditioning at the door. For this explainer, you and I are sitting as impartial observers in the gallery. We are here to weigh his logic coldly, just like scientists in a lab. Section 3. 4 witnesses on trial. Look at how brilliantly this makes his point. If you strip away all the sentimentality and the rituals, science, Islam, Hinduism, and Buddhism all point toward the exact same thing, the absence of a distinct personal deity. Starting with Islam, Osman argues that the core texts define God as the unseen and literally inconceivable. God was never born, occupies no space, and is entirely non-physical. Osman makes the case that in a laboratory or a courtroom sense, a functionally non-physical and inconceivable subject is the exact description of something that does not tangibly exist. Moving over to Hinduism or Sanatana Dharma, he points to its highest philosophical level, Advaita. Legendary figures like Ramakrishna and Vivekananda taught that the highest wisdom points to pure non-dual oneness. The ultimate reality is an indivisible whole. Therefore, a separate God entity that you pray to is basically just a mental construct for beginners. Buddhism adds some really straightforward weight to this defense by remaining explicitly non-theistic. With its core doctrine of anatta, meaning no permanent self, the idea of a permanent supreme self becomes logically impossible. And of course, this seamlessly aligns with the atheist witness, who requires absolutely no further convincing. So when we weigh the preponderance of all this evidence in our courtroom, putting the claims of a personal God on one side and the combined definitions of science, Islam, Hinduism, and Buddhism on the other, Osman estimates an 80% or greater probability in favor of non-existence. Section 4. Entity versus mechanism. Because if the verdict is that God does not exist, does that make Osman a materialist or a nihilist? The answer is an emphatic, absolute no. Remember his background. This is a master-level bioenergy healer. He specializes in telepathic healing, specifically for critical care recovery and terminal illnesses. He obviously believes in a deeply powerful, profound reality that permeates the universe. Here is the absolute crux of his argument. It's the distinction between an entity and a mechanism.
He argues that an entity with a personality, a supernatural king you pray to or try to bargain with, does not exist. But a mechanism, an energy force, or universal field absolutely does. You don't worship the law of gravity, right? But you can certainly learn its mechanisms to fly airplanes. He specifically points to the mechanism of consciousness, namely quantum entanglement. This is the idea that consciousness is a fundamental, non-local field. You hear this discussed a lot on platforms like the Buddha at the Gas Pump podcast with Rick Archer. For Osman, this isn't just a fun theory to think about. It's a practical, scientific tool he uses for his healing practices.
It's all about methodology. Just like Tony Robbins gives you practical protocols for success rather than just telling you to wish for it, Osman gives you a repeatable method. Think of Swami Sivananda from the Divine Life Society and his highly systematic approach, or how Gopi Krishna viewed awakening as a literal biological mechanism for human evolution. It is all about utilizing universal energy to get real results.
Section 5, the final verdict. Let's look at how this practically applies to your everyday life. Accepting this framework is honestly liberating. It frees you from that nagging cognitive dissonance, allowing you to be deeply spiritual while completely retaining your logic. It shifts you away from blind belief and turns you into the active scientist of your own life, totally restoring your personal agency. Osman is incredibly passionate about democratizing this ancient, lost science to help people improve their health, peace of mind, and relationships. He offers extensive advice completely for free on his YouTube channel and podcast, The Blind Muslim Yogi. And you definitely need to check out his website, yogawellness786.com, where you can download a completely free 5-minute yoga and meditation program. Now, because of his 50 years of intensive practice and his incredibly high success rate with serious cases, he does offer his master-level bioenergy healing as a premium paid service. Though he makes it crystal clear, this is a complimentary service to enhance recovery, never a replacement for proper medical treatment. He also has a Patreon for daily live video lessons and one-on-one consultations. But again, he holds absolutely nothing back on his free channels. By logically deconstructing the personal God entity, he doesn't leave us stranded in a cold, empty universe. Instead, he points us toward an intimate, inconceivable reality, perfectly captured by the poet Rumi. Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right-doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. And we leave you with this final, provocative thought. If the greatest world traditions, when stripped down to their absolute core, all agree on an inconceivable, nameless unity, why do we continue to fight over its form? If it cannot be owned, maybe it's the very thing that connects us all. Thanks for joining us for this explainer.